Hey guys, I don't know if you know this or not, but the name Barabbas means son of the Father. And we know that Jesus claimed to be the son of the Father. Therefore, the story of Barabbas is completely invented.
That don't make no sense.
Here's atheist YouTuber Vice Rhino arguing that the gospel writers invented the story of Barabbas, who was given in exchange for Jesus on Passover before Jesus was crucified.
Like, the idea that part of Passover was for the Romans to release one prisoner, a detail which doesn't fit with anything that we know about Roman history, in Judea or elsewhere. It especially doesn't fit well with the kind of person Pilate was, according to non-biblical sources. He was an iron-fisted ruler who didn't care about what the locals thought of him, and wasn't above using violence to intimidate them. The Bible also describes Barabbas as an insurrectionist and a murderer, exactly the kind of prisoner that the Roman authorities would definitely not release. Also, fun fact, but the name Barabbas translates to son of the father, which, if this is an invented story, ends up having significant meaning. The people choose the violent murdering son of the father over the son of the father who is the actual savior. In some manuscripts, he's even named Jesus Barabbas, making the comparison all the more pointed. So what are we to make of this event that the Bible portrays as a well-established tradition, for which there is not only no supporting evidence, but a plethora of evidence that it was made up whole cloth?
Let's unpack Rhino's arguments one by one. For starters, he's engaging in some serious parallelomania here. While we can explore symbolic meanings of names and make all kinds of different connections, it doesn't automatically undermine the historical authenticity of an account. Consider the crucifixion of Jesus during Passover. That itself carries profound symbolic significance, yet it is historically well-grounded. Uncovering symbolism doesn't automatically mean a lack of historical accuracy or fabrication. Even the name Jesus itself means Yahweh saves, but that doesn't imply the concept of him being a savior simply arose from his name. In fact, we could do the so-and-so's name means X, therefore it must be fiction game endlessly if we want. Take Martha, a minor figure in the New Testament known for her role when Jesus visited her home in Luke 10:38-42. Some might argue that Luke deliberately chose the name Martha, which means lady or mistress, to create a character representing traditional female roles. They could suggest that Martha, always depicted as busy with practical matters, was an invention by Luke to emphasize the importance of women in the early Christian community. They might even propose that Martha symbolizes the idea that women should not challenge men while they're engaged in spiritual matters and should emulate the quiet, undistracted submission of Mary. However, let's face it, constructing arguments primarily based on names doesn't offer substantial evidence to claim that Luke invented the character of Martha. But let's keep our mythicist hats on for just a few more moments and continue to have some fun. The story of Matthew's calling in the Gospel of Matthew could be reimagined as purely symbolic, taking into account the meaning of his name. In this alternate version, Matthew, whose name signifies a gift of God, represents the idea that Jesus' teachings are a divine gift to humanity. His transition from being a tax collector to becoming a follower of Jesus symbolizes the notion of embracing this gift leads to profound transformation in one's life, akin to shifting from collecting worldly taxes to amassing spiritual riches. The potential for generating more of these symbolic interpretations seems nearly endless. Now I'm going to stop here because I don't want to give the mythicists too much material to work with, but the fact is that the name Jesus was a very common name in first century Palestine, and the name Barabbas was a proper surname at the time. Furthermore, when Rhino says that we have no external corroboration for this particular practice, therefore it's fiction, he's engaging in an argument from silence. This method is used to challenge the historical accuracy of a particular event or narrative by pointing out what the historical texts do not explicitly mention. I've discussed why this is problematic on my channel many times. Our intuition about whether a writer would mention an actual event is not super reliable. So for example, in AD 41, Emperor Claudius expelled the Jews from Rome. Surprisingly, both Jewish historians Josephus and Philo, who extensively documented Jewish history, do not mention this event. The only sources that describe it are the Book of Acts and the writings of Suetonius. During the American Civil War, General U.S. Grant, who meticulously kept a diary of the war, says nothing about the Emancipation Proclamation. Grafton's Chronicles discuss the reign of King John, but there is zero mention of the Magna Carta. These examples can be multiplied and highlight a common problem. We need to be careful and calibrate our expectations when we look at historical records. Besides this being an argument from silence, Rhino is also engaging in what I would call a priori history. In doing a priori history, the critic decides ahead of time what would have not happened and uses his own perception of such matters to discount the positive testimony of a historical source close to the time. Disregarding a source regarding a non-miraculous event just because it's in the Bible is a really bad way to do history. Furthermore, the unlikeliness of asserting such a custom without its actual existence makes the gospel accounts more credible. If Pilate had never released prisoners during the Passover or other holidays, not even once, the evangelist's claim that he could easily have been proven false, potentially causing problems for the early church. The fact that all 4 evangelists tell this story suggests that this report didn't bring any kind of shame to the early Christian community. Besides, there isn't anything in our background knowledge that makes this event particularly improbable. Philo and Josephus both repeatedly assert that the Roman administration did indeed tolerate Jewish customs in various passages of their writings. Moreover, ancient Rome gave a lot of leeway and flexibility to local rulers and governors to institute rules and policies they saw fit to govern each province. And we do have evidence that relates to Roman and Jewish acts of clemency itself. The Mishnah, which is a collection of Jewish oral laws, mentions that someone could slaughter the Passover lamb for a person promised to be set free from prison during Passover. We're not entirely sure who made this promise, whether it was a Jewish or Roman authority, but what's interesting is that the release was specifically linked to participating in the Passover observance. Moreover, Josephus tells the story that in 64 AD, Governor Albinus, before leaving his post, released all prisoners except murderers, hoping for a favor from the people of Jerusalem. In addition, Josephus also informs us that Archelaus tried to win favor and secure his late father's kingdom by going along with the demands to release prisoners. All of this evidence points to the fact that both Roman rulers and at least one Herodian prince occasionally set prisoners free. It was mostly a political move to please the crowds and gain their support. But there is one tricky question that still remains. Why would Pilate release such a dangerous criminal like Barabbas into the public? Barabbas, who was probably involved in uprisings, doesn't really pose that big of a historical puzzle, as we could find similar instances in Jewish and Roman history. For example, in his own life story, Josephus gives us detailed accounts of successfully appealing to Caesar Titus, where he managed to spare friends and acquaintances. He even convinced Titus to pardon 3 individuals who were already condemned to crucifixion, even though they were already on crosses. These individuals were connected to the Jewish war and insurrection, and some had their sentences reversed. Josephus's ability to persuade Titus shows that it's possible for Pilate to release Barabbas to calm the Jewish crowd. Keep in mind, while Pilate had a reputation for cruelty, he was in a tough spot. The Jewish authorities wanted Jesus to be crucified very much, and they hinted at complaining to Caesar, which they had done before regarding Pilate's actions. All told, this is a far cry from being a plethora of evidence that indicates that this story was made up from whole cloth. Anyways, there are a lot of issues with Rhino's particular video response to Deflate on the reliability of the Gospels, and I'm not going to discuss all of them here, but I did discuss one of them in a previous video. So I'll see you over there. I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much for watching, and perhaps I'll do more response to this particular video in the future.